Story 1 of 9. LIV Golf funding crisis and player futures after Saudi withdrawal. LIV Golf funding crisis and player futures after Saudi withdrawal. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, will cease funding LIV Golf at the end of the 2026 season, confirmed by multiple sources including Guardian and ABC. Cameron Smith, Mark Leishman, Elvis Smiley, and Lucas Herbert are key Australian golfers on LIV's Ripper team facing uncertain futures due to the funding crisis. LIV Golf has spent over $5 billion since its launch in 2022, with Guardian and ABC citing figures of $5.3 billion and $5 billion respectively. LIV Golf announced a new independent board led by Gene Davis and John Zinman, replacing Yasir Al-Rumayyan, as reported by Guardian and ABC. South Australia is spending $45 million to upgrade North Adelaide Golf Course for a LIV tournament in 2028, as mentioned in Guardian and ABC. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states LIV Golf has spent $5.3 billion since 2022, while ABC reports a figure of $5 billion, with both sources acknowledging the total exceeds $5 billion. Article 1, Guardian, mentions Cameron Smith has missed the cut at his past 6 majors, while Article 3, ABC, states he missed the halfway cut in all 4 majors in 2025, with no mention of 6 majors. Article 4, Guardian, states LIV Golf has 13 teams, while Article 6, ABC, mentions 10 of its 13 teams are expected to be profitable this year, implying the total number of teams is consistent but not explicitly stated in all sources. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 2 of 9. Search suspended for missing Australian hiker Denise Ann Williams in Nova Scotia, Canada. Search suspended for missing Australian hiker Denise Ann Williams in Nova Scotia, Canada. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Denise Ann Williams, 62, a Victorian woman, was last heard from on April 15, 2026, when she told family she was travelling to Cheticamp, Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia. Williams was reported missing on April 28, 2026, after her rental car, a Nissan Sentra, was found at a visitor centre near the start of the Acadian Trail in Cape Breton Highlands National Park. The Acadian Trail is an 8.4-kilometre loop in Cape Breton Highlands National Park, described as moderate difficulty with steep inclines, rugged sections, and wildlife warnings, black bears, moose. Search efforts began on April 28, 2026, involving air and ground teams, including RCMP, Search and Rescue, Police Dogs, and Parks Canada, and lasted until May 3, 2026. Williams is described as 152 centimeters tall, 5'4", with grayish blonde, shoulder-length hair, wearing a dark winter jacket, a powder blue toque with Antarctica written on it, an orange and blue scarf, and glasses. But not all outlets told the same story. Guardian reports Williams' vehicle was found at the Parks Canada Visitor Centre at the start of the Acadian Trailhead, while ABC and Newscomau describe it as found near the start of the Acadian Trail without specifying visitor centre. Guardian states the search was continuing on Friday, April 29, while ABC and Newscomau confirm it ended on May 3. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 3 of 9. Victorian 2026-27 State Budget Analysis and Winners-Losers. Victorian 2026-27 State Budget Analysis and Winners-Losers. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Victoria's 2026-27 budget includes $432.5 million for free public transport until May 31 and half-price fares until January 1, 2027. The budget allocates $758.5 million for a 20% discount on car registrations, saving up to $186 per vehicle. Victoria's net debt is projected to reach $199.3 billion by 2029-30, with interest payments forecast at $11.8 billion annually by 2029-30. The budget forecasts a $1.048 billion surplus for 2026-27, the first surplus since 2018-19. Health and education make up about 54% of total government spending in the budget. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and ABC report the budget includes $1.6 billion for health, but Newscomau and The Age do not specify this exact figure. The Age reports the budget includes $1.145 billion from the Lottery Corporation for a license extension, which is not mentioned in other sources. Newscomau states the budget includes $11.2 million for families struggling to put food on the table, but this figure is not mentioned in other sources. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, and The Age. Story 4 of 9. Rising antisemitism in Australia and its impact on Jewish children post-Bondi massacre. Rising antisemitism in Australia and its impact on Jewish children post-Bondi massacre. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The Bondi massacre occurred on December 2025, where 2 alleged Islamic State-inspired gunmen shot and killed 15 people and injured 40 others at a beachside Hanukkah event for the Jewish community. A royal commission into antisemitism and social cohesion was established after the Bondi massacre, with hearings focused on defining antisemitism, its historical and contemporary manifestations, and its current impact on Jewish Australians. Jewish children in Australia are experiencing anti-Semitic abuse at school, including swastikas daubed on walls and Nazi salutes performed by classmates. Parents testified that their children fear attending Jewish community events due to threats of violence, including a street food festival in Melbourne where children said they might be shot. Anti-Semitic slurs such as kike, dirty Jew, and genocidal are reported as being used against Jewish individuals on social media. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian provides a specific date for the Bondi massacre, December 2025, but SBS does not mention a date, making it impossible to verify or contradict. This story was covered by The Guardian and SBS News. Story 5 of 9. Convicted child sex offender banned from healthcare after posing as a doctor and counselling children. Convicted child sex offender banned from healthcare after posing as a doctor and counselling children. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Frankie Allen Bailey was convicted in 2009 of 5 counts of sexual intercourse with a 16-year-old student at St Andrew's Christian College, Grafton, where he was headmaster. Bailey was convicted in 2010 of aggravated sexual assault of a 14-year-old student at the same school, where he drugged her and molested her. Bailey was sentenced to a total of 10 years in prison, 2009 to 2019, for his crimes, with a non-parole period of 6 years. Bailey was placed on the NSW Child Protection Register, requiring him to report to police and barring him from contact with anyone under 18. Bailey breached his reporting obligations 3 times and was sentenced to imprisonment in 2021, released in 2022. But not all outlets told the same story. Newscomau states Bailey pleaded guilty to 5 counts of failing to comply with reporting obligations in May 2025, while ABC does not specify a date for the plea but confirms the charges. Newscomau mentions Bailey was sentenced to imprisonment in 2021 for breaching reporting obligations, while ABC does not explicitly state the year of the sentence but confirms the breach and subsequent imprisonment. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 6 of 9. Australian author Craig Silvey pleads guilty to child exploitation charges. Australian author Craig Silvey pleads guilty to child exploitation charges. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Craig Silvey pleaded guilty to possessing and distributing child exploitation material. Silvey was first charged in January 2026 after police raided his Fremantle home and seized electronic devices. 2 additional charges, including producing child exploitation material between February and June 2022, were discontinued. Silvey is next scheduled to appear in the District Court in July 2026 for sentencing. Silvey is 43 years old and a father of 3. But not all outlets told the same story. The ABC states the guilty pleas involve images of child exploitation material, while The Guardian specifies possessing and distributing child exploitation material without mentioning images explicitly. The ABC mentions 2 other charges were dropped, while The Guardian specifies 2 additional charges, including production, were discontinued, with slightly different phrasing on timing. ABC, over a period of months in 2022, Guardian, between February and June 2022. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and SBS News. Story 7 of 9. Australian Parliament inquiry secretly allows tobacco lobbyists private testimony despite health concerns. Australian Parliament inquiry secretly allows tobacco lobbyists private testimony despite health concerns. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Philip Morris representatives gave evidence in a closed, in-camera, session during a Senate inquiry into illegal tobacco trade on the 4th of May, 2026. The inquiry is chaired by Liberal Senator Leah Blythe and is examining the illegal tobacco market in Australia. Health Minister Mark Butler wrote to Senator Blythe on the 27th of April, 2026, Friday last week, advising against inviting tobacco industry representatives due to obligations under the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, FCTC, Article 5.3. Green Senator Jordan Steele-John confirmed the private hearing with Philip Morris took place and promised to release a transcript, with redacted names. The Australian Council on Smoking and Health, ACSH, and Cancer Council Australia criticised the inclusion of Philip Morris, calling the industry a commercial actor with conflicting interests. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian does not mention safety concerns as the reason for the private hearing, while the ABC explicitly states the decision was made due to safety concerns for Philip Morris representatives. The Guardian reports the committee took a break with no explanation before resuming, while the ABC notes the break lasted 15 minutes and was followed by Senator Steele-John's announcement of the private hearing. The Guardian emphasises the lack of transparency in the committee's published programme, not listing Philip Morris, while the ABC focuses on the redaction of names in transcripts as the primary transparency issue. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 8 of 9. RBA raises interest rates to 4.35% amid inflation and Middle East war impact. RBA raises interest rates to 4.35% amid inflation and Middle East war impact. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, raised the official cash rate by 0.25 percentage points to 4.35% on May 5, 2026, marking the third consecutive hike in 2026. 8 of the 9 RBA board members voted to increase the cash rate, while 1 member voted to leave it unchanged at 4.1%. Headline inflation in Australia reached 4.6% in the 12 months to March 2026, with fuel prices surging 32.8% in March due to the Middle East war. The RBA forecasts headline inflation to peak at 4.8% in the June quarter of 2026, up from a pre-war estimate of 4.2%. The RBA expects economic growth to halve to 1.3% in 2026 due to the Middle East conflict, down from a pre-war forecast of 2.6%. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states the RBA's baseline scenario assumes a relatively rapid end to the Middle East conflict, while ABC describes it as assuming the Strait of Hormuz will reopen within the next few weeks. ABC notes that the RBA's forecasts assume the fuel excise cut will end in July, but does not specify whether this is confirmed by other sources. Newscomau claims the RBA flagged there could be further hikes, while ABC and Guardian suggest this hike may be the last for 2026, with markets pricing in only one more 25 basis point increase. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 9 of 9. AFL fines Carlton $75,000 for mishandling Elijah Holland's mental health episode during Collingwood match. AFL fines Carlton $75,000 for mishandling Elijah Holland's mental health episode during Collingwood match. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Carlton was fined $75,000 by the AFL for not removing Elijah Hollands from the field during his mental health episode in Round 6 against Collingwood. The incident occurred during Carlton's match against Collingwood at the MCG on April 16, 2026. Elijah Hollands was hospitalised 5 days after the match, April 21, 2026. The AFL ruled that Hollands should have been removed from play earlier based on visual cues, performance data, and his previously disclosed mental health challenges. AFL Chief Executive Andrew Dillon stated the fine was issued against the club collectively, not individuals. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian mentions Carlton coach Michael Voss accused the media of bullying, but the ABC does not report this. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian.